Many years ago, a young man named Alex Ford embarked on a journey from his hometown of Nas to study in northern Italy. With aspirations of furthering his education, he rented a modest room on the top floor of an old, dark, and ancient palace. This palace, which once belonged to a distinguished noble family, was now managed by an elderly woman named Signora Rosa. She had converted the once grand residence into a boarding house for students from the University of Padua. Alex's room had a small, quaint window that offered a view of a sprawling garden filled with an array of plants and flowers. Intrigued by the sight, Alex couldn't help but ask Signora Rosa one day, "Does this garden belong to you?" "Oh no, dear," she answered promptly. "The garden belongs to the renowned Dr. Julian Rini. People say he uses these plants to concoct unusual and sometimes bizarre medicines. He resides in that modest brown house within the garden, along with his daughter, Eliza." Alex's fascination with the garden grew stronger as he often spent time by his window, observing the vibrant assortment of plants. The garden was an explosion of color, with large green leaves and flowers in every hue imaginable. His favorite plant was situated in a white marble vase near the small brown house. It was adorned with large, striking purple flowers that captivated him. One day, as Alex gazed out his window, he noticed an elderly man in a flowing black cape walking through the garden. The man was tall and slender, with a sickly yellow complexion. His piercing black eyes were cold and unfeeling. He wore thick gloves and a mask over his mouth and nose, as though the garden's plants were hazardous. He navigated the garden with great caution, closely inspecting the flowers but never touching or smelling them. When he arrived at the plant with the large purple flowers, he stopped, removed his mask, and called out loudly, "Eliza, come help me." "I'm coming, Father," came a warm, melodious voice from within the house. Eliza appeared, her thick, dark hair cascading in curls around her shoulders. Her cheeks were a rosy pink, and her large, dark eyes sparkled with life and energy. As she walked through the garden, Alex thought she was as beautiful as the purple flowers in the marble vase. Her father spoke to her, and she nodded, touching and smelling the flowers that he had carefully avoided. Weeks turned into months, and Alex decided to visit Professor Martin, a family friend and a respected medicine professor at the university. During the visit, Alex asked about Dr. Rini. "He is indeed a brilliant scientist," Professor Martin replied, "but he is also a dangerous man." "Why do you ask?" Alex inquired further, prompting the professor to elaborate. "Rini is more obsessed with his experiments than with the well-being of others. He has created numerous dreadful poisons from the plants in his garden. Although he has occasionally managed to cure those whom everyone else thought would die, his remedies have also resulted in numerous deaths. He would sacrifice any life, even his own, for the sake of his research." "But what about his daughter?" Alex asked. "I'm certain he loves her." Professor Martin smiled wistfully. "You've heard about Eliza Rini. People claim she is exceptionally beautiful, but very few have seen her, as she rarely leaves her father's garden." As the sun began to set, Alex returned to his room, purchasing some fresh flowers from a nearby shop. He sat by his window, watching the garden as the light faded. The purple flowers on his favorite plant seemed to glow eerily in the twilight. Suddenly, Eliza emerged from the small brown house. She strolled gracefully through the garden, bending down to touch the leaves and smell the flowers. When she reached the plant with the large purple flowers, she buried her face in its blooms and whispered, "Give me your breath, my sister, for the ordinary air makes me weak." She carefully plucked one of the largest flowers and placed it in her dark hair. A few drops of liquid from the flower fell to the ground, landing on a tiny lizard nearby. The lizard twisted violently before lying still. Eliza showed no surprise and continued with her task. A butterfly, drawn by Eliza's presence, fluttered over the garden wall. It circled her head before falling to the ground, lifeless. Eliza looked up and noticed Alex watching from his window. "Here," he called out, tossing the flowers he had bought down to her. "Wear these as a gift from Alex Ford." "Thank you," Eliza said, picking up the flowers and retreating to the house with a quick, shy wave. Alex noticed that the flowers seemed to be wilting in her hands. Over the following days, Alex kept away from his window, troubled by Eliza's beauty and the disturbing events he had witnessed. One day, as he walked home from classes, he crossed paths with Professor Martin on the street. "Alex," the professor said, "I've been concerned about you. You haven't attended your classes for over a month. Is everything all right?" Alex, appearing pale and gaunt, replied, "Yes, I'm fine, thank you." The professor's gaze was penetrating. "You look unwell. It seems something is troubling you." As they spoke, a man in a long black cape approached them. He moved slowly, his face yellow and his eyes sharp. "That's Dr. Rini," Professor Martin whispered as the man passed by. "Has he ever seen your face before?" Alex shook his head. "No, I don't think so." Professor Martin looked worried. "I believe he has seen you. His gaze is reminiscent of how he looks at animals he has experimented on. I fear you might be the subject of one of his experiments. Be very careful, Alex." Frightened, Alex hurried to his room. Outside his door, Senora Rosa was waiting. "I have good news," she said. "I know of a secret entrance to Dr. Rini's garden." Alex followed her to the hidden entrance, leading into the garden. The plants inside were wild and alien, each more peculiar than the last. He realized that Rini had likely engineered these bizarre and ominous flowers through his experiments. Eliza soon appeared, moving swiftly among the flowers until she reached Alex. Apologizing for his intrusion, she welcomed him warmly. "I see you love flowers," she said. "Have you come to explore my father's rare collection more closely?" As she spoke, Alex noticed a pleasant, intoxicating fragrance surrounding her. He wasn't sure if it was from the flowers or her breath. They wandered slowly through the garden, conversing. When they arrived at the plant with the large purple flowers, Alex reached out to pluck one, but Eliza let out a piercing scream. "Never touch those flowers," she cried, her voice filled with urgency. She yanked his hand away from the plant with surprising strength and ran back into the house. That night, Alex could not stop thinking about Eliza. When morning arrived, he woke up in intense pain, his hand burning where Eliza had grabbed him. He noticed a purple mark in the shape of fingers on his hand. Despite the pain, his heart was filled with thoughts of Eliza. He continued meeting her daily. Eventually, she confessed her love for him but insisted that he could never kiss her or hold her hand. Several weeks later, Professor Martin visited Alex again, concerned about his prolonged absence from classes. "You must distance yourself from Rini and his daughter," he urged. "Rini has poisoned Eliza since childhood. If he has done this to his own daughter, imagine what he might do to you." Alex was distressed by the news, but the professor reassured him that there might still be hope. He handed Alex a small silver bottle containing an antidote capable of neutralizing even the most potent poison. "Give this to Eliza," the professor instructed. "She should take it first, and then you can follow." Eliza agreed to drink the medicine first to test its effects. As she sipped the liquid, Dr. Rini appeared, approaching them with an air of satisfaction. "My daughter," he said, "you are no longer alone. Give Alex one of your purple flowers. It will not harm him now. My science and your love have altered him from ordinary men." Eliza, weakly, questioned her father's actions. "Why did you do this to me?" she asked. Rini, taken aback, replied, "You possess a power that no other woman has. You can defeat your strongest enemies with a mere breath. Would you rather be weak?" Eliza responded, "I want to be loved, not feared." She then declared her intention to leave, saying goodbye to both her father and Alex. She collapsed, dying at their feet. The poison, deeply embedded in her, was too powerful for the antidote to counteract. The medicine destroyed the poison but also took her life.